Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Jonathan Lipp here from the Big Apple Film Festival. Thanks for watching BAFF Chats. We're hanging out here at Connolly's in Midtown Manhattan, and we are with Julie Sharbutt, who made a film called Moved, which we screened a few years back at the Big Apple Film Festival. Julie, can you tell us a little bit about Moved?
Sure. It's a film that we shot, a tiny indie film shot entirely in one take, an 86-minute feature film shot in one take with 3 actors. And we raised all the funds for it on Kickstarter and premiered it at the Big Apple Film Festival 2013. Now it's available online via The Orchard on iTunes and Amazon.
I guess the first question I want to ask you is, in terms of, first of all, making the film, the idea of shooting in one take, how challenging did you find that, if you found it challenging at all, which I imagine you probably did?
Yeah, no, we found it very challenging, but we had such a tiny budget. We were working on a micro budget, so our basic premise, I'd written it essentially in real time, 90 minutes of real time. So we thought, well, if we have such a small budget and we have the ability to do this in one take, we should just do something, the most interesting possible thing that we can. So we did, and we rehearsed it for about 3 weeks with the actors and with the cinematographer, with the DP. Choreographed it essentially like a play so that he could land and compose the shots, and then shot it 6 times all the way through. And of course, the one that we ended up using for our final edit was the 6th take. So thank God. But it was great. They were all great, all very different. But the 6th one was the last one, the most well-timed, well-tuned production, yeah.
So, the biggest challenge, obviously, that most filmmakers, deal with is distribution. Most of the people that are watching this are emerging filmmakers. And they, one of the biggest questions I think people have is how to go about finding a distributor. Now, The Orchard is a known worldwide distributor. When you're making a smaller kind of indie film, how did you go about attracting a distributor?
I wish I had better news for young filmmakers out there, but there is no good news. It's really hard. It's hard to attract attention. So I was super lucky to have been in a couple films with some great guys that were both distributed by FilmBuff. So I just sort of poked around and I sort of found connections where I had them. I asked FilmBuff. I knew someone at The Orchard, and they had just started picking up films for their online distribution. They were primarily in music before that. And that was really it. That was the most simple answer, is I just asked as many people as I could to put me in touch with distributors, and Orchard ended up being in the right place at the right time. I was very much on the lower end of what they took on, but they were psyched about it because it was a weird new project, and they were kind of on the verge of becoming more known, so it just was a good fit, and I totally lucked out. But all the marketing I did outside of distribution was on me. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you in terms of marketing. In this day and age, so many filmmakers now have to be, marketing executives as well at the same time as artists. Obviously, years ago maybe it was different, but now as a filmmaker, you really got to be your own sort of promoter as well. How do you go about marketing your film when you're in competition with all this content that's out there in the world right now? How do you use social media? How do you go about publicizing?
It was funny. I had a small budget tucked away to hire a PR person when the film came out. I was super excited about it, and I couldn't find anybody who would take on the job, which was I was sort of floored. They were all very decent, lovely companies that were basically like, we don't know how to market the film, and it's too close to Sundance and the Oscars. So I was like, all right, well. I basically took all the money that I would have spent hiring a PR person, and I just put it towards very grassroots means of promotion, which was I started a vlog, and I started talking about how to make a film on a tiny, tiny budget. I have a lot of networks in the comedy communities in New York and LA, so I sort of reached out to them and tried to get screenings going on a more sort of tiny living room grassroots kind of basis. And I did a big screening at Littlefield in Brooklyn. And I made T-shirts. I basically just found people who I liked and respected who were connected in other means, in other realms besides film, and asked them to take an interest and promote it, and they did. So that was how that happened. Beyond that, though, we're just finding out whatever's special about your film. My film, it's written and directed by a woman, which is sort of a hot button topic right now. And it was shot in one take, which was an interesting technical element. So those are the 2 things that I really promoted to whoever might be interested in those elements of this film.
You had mentioned that you used Kickstarter initially to raise the financing. I wasn't even planning on asking this, but since you mentioned it, I just want to bring it up. What advice would you give to someone who's trying to develop a Kickstarter campaign who's never done it before?
Yeah. Again, a hard answer. There's not an easy answer to this one. We raised $20,000, which was more money than I've ever asked for anything, and I'd never asked for anything before. I think the most basic advice I can say is just to be really passionate about your project and to try to put yourself in the position of someone who's not you or not your closest friends and make an impassioned case as to why it's important that that piece of work be done. I mean, nobody's going to want to fund your project on a whim. So make a case for why it's important and how you're making it and how the impact of that work will be felt outside of your own personal community. And people will find ways of finding you. I mean, I had really interesting people find me on Kickstarter basically because of who I was, and it just made an impact to them in ways that I hadn't expected and ways outside of my own personal community.
And lastly, you working on any new projects right now that we should know about?
Sure.
Cool.
Well, I have a screenplay in development right now with Beach Hill Films. It's a female buddy comedy, so that's super exciting, and probably make some announcements this summer. I'm working on a short film set in Sunnyside, sort of loosely based on the very tragic case of Avante Oquendo, who went missing last year, or 2 years ago. So I'm just working on a lot of projects that I'm interested in on various levels, comedy and also more heartfelt and passion projects. Yeah.
Well, Julie, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Definitely check out Moved. And thank you very much for being here with us. All right, we'll see you guys at the Big Apple Film Festival this year, November 4th to the 7th, Village East Cinemas. Okay, thanks.